As a 31-year-old man, I did what any 65-year-old woman should do. I got DEXA'd. I assessed my bone mass and density to gauge bone health, and I then compared those results to optimal bone density values. What is bone mineral density? Why is preventing osteopenia so important? And what routine can you follow to optimize bone health? Well, let's get into it. Osteopenia is when your bones are becoming weaker than they should be. They're becoming brittle, and without intervention, they're destined for osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is when bones become brittle enough to break easily. A fall, bump, or even a cough becomes dangerous. Surprisingly, 1 in 5 men and 3 in 5 women have osteopenia over the age of 50, a weakening of bones. 15 years later, by the age of 65, those same 20% of men and 60% of women now have osteoporosis, bones that are brittle enough to break from even a cough. That's because after the age of 50, bone mineral density falls off a cliff, decreasing by 1% per year. And if that wasn't bad enough, the resulting bone fractures can be even worse, potentially deadly. Those that suffer a hip fracture over the age of 50 have a mere 60% chance of surviving in the first year. So think of your 55-year-old dad suffering a hip fracture and having a 40% chance of death. That isn't good. In addition, hip fractures and bone fractures in general are the leading cause of disability worldwide. And despite postmenopausal women being 4 times more susceptible to brittle bones, men are more susceptible to dying from bone fractures. Although being a 31-year-old male puts me at very little risk, there's one major risk factor I do have. I'm lean. Surprisingly, being overweight is beneficial for bone health. It's probably the first time that I've said being fat is good. Time to binge on chips and bagels. Sure, you'll increase your risk for heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, and all the other bad things that come with being overweight, but at least your hips are fine. This is because the added body weight is like a gym workout all the time. Carrying around that extra fat puts more stress on the supporting bone structure, causing the bones to build back stronger. Fat is also like a cushion for falls, decreasing your risk for fracture. It's kind of like wearing football pads everywhere. But the other potential risk factor that I have is my diet. While plant-based diets are best for reducing disease and disability, there's some concern about bone health. Do vegans have weaker bones? Is this a built-in flaw of the plant-based diet? And can bones only be strong by consuming cow's milk? Some studies suggest vegans have weaker bones, but this is largely because vegans are leaner than their meat and dairy consuming counterparts. So I'll give that a maybe. But this isn't a built-in flaw of plant-based diets. The 3 primary factors for bone health can easily be achieved with a balanced diet. I'll share those factors soon. And yes, bones can be just as strong, if not stronger, without consuming cow's milk. There's even some evidence suggesting that cow's milk increases risk for bone fractures and osteoporosis. But either way, here is the routine that fixes all bone density issues. To see if you have a bone density issue, get a DEXA scan. While doctors only recommend it over the age of 65, I think getting them much earlier is recommended. I prefer to get one every year. That way over time, I can see the 5 and 10-year trend lines. Plus, DEXA scans provide important information on muscle mass and body fat, and at around $150, I just think it's worth it. My DEXA score provided 4 key bone metrics. Number 1, my bone mineral density. Number 2, a T-score that compares my bone mineral density to that of healthy young adults. 3, a Z-score, which is just the same thing as the T-score, but age adjusted. Because I am a healthy young adult at peak bone health, my T and Z score are actually the same. And number 4, the percentile that I'm in. Out of these metrics, I'd recommend a Z score of at least 1. That'll put you over the 84th percentile with little risk for bone health issues. When I had my DEXA scan back in November of 2022, I had a Z score of 1.8. That put me in the 97th percentile for bone mineral density at my age group, and that's something I'm happy about. And if you're curious how to raise your bone mineral density best, here are those top 3 factors. 99% of calcium is stored in the bones and teeth. It's the building block to strong bones. The daily requirement for calcium is about 1,000 milligrams per day in the US, but that tracks back to a couple studies back in the 1970s. Newer research shows that consuming at least 525 milligrams of calcium per day eliminates all bone fracture risk. And that's what the World Health Organization recommends too. I personally couldn't find any benefit in going above that 500 milligrams per day of calcium. You can get 300 of those milligrams from a cup of cow's milk, but that'll increase your risk for certain cancers, obesity, Alzheimer's, and asthma. Just like I wouldn't recommend getting fat for bone health, I wouldn't recommend cow's milk either. A cup of fortified soy milk can provide that same 300 milligrams of calcium while preventing cancer. A tablespoon of chia seeds or sesame seeds can provide 100 milligrams per day, and just a small tablespoon. Or just eating a wide variety of dark leafy greens and beans should do the trick. If you've seen my optimal daily meal plan, you know I consume almost 2,000 milligrams of calcium per day, so it is not an issue for me, and it shouldn't be an issue for you if you're consuming a well-balanced diet. But none of that calcium matters without vitamin D. Vitamin D allows the absorption and utilization of calcium. Without vitamin D, it's wasted. Children alone, vitamin D can suffer from rickets. Their bones become weak and soft and malformed. It's not ideal. And so while you can get vitamin D from the sun, I'd recommend 2,000 IU a day of vitamin D and a supplement, and then just get a vitamin D test once a year so that you can adjust the dosage. And for optimal results, aim for a vitamin D level between 45 and 60 nanograms per milliliter. But consuming these building blocks alone doesn't build strong bones. It provides the potential for strong bones. Exercise is the only strategy that can improve all modifiable fracture risk factors: bone strength, fall risk, and fall impact. But it must be appropriately prescribed, and adherence needs to be maintained. Exercise puts stress on the bones, and that stress triggers bones to build back stronger. But it must be done correctly. While walking, running, yoga, and Pilates help some, the benefits are pretty small. Lifting progressively heavier weights is best. Aim for 2 strength training sessions at least per week. This research on bone health, along with others that I've read about strength development, has me interested in lifting heavy again. I think by the end of the year, I'm going to be benching, deadlifting, and squatting a lot more often, because those heavy compound movements are great for building bone density. It's why bodybuilders, powerlifters, and Olympic lifters have the strongest bones. So here are my final thoughts. Osteopenia is a weakening of the bones that can lead to osteoporosis or brittle bones without intervention. While women are 4 times more vulnerable, it's a concern for men too. But luckily, bone issues are preventable. Calcium and vitamin D provide building blocks for strong bone health, and exercise training triggers the building of strong bones. Exercise is by far the best way to improve all modifiable risk factors, and it's why I'm excited to start lifting heavy again this year. And when I do, I'll be sure to post about those habits for health excellence too. Thanks for stopping by, and if you're interested in more habits for health excellence, feel free to sign up for my weekly newsletter, where I include those along with the most important things that I've read, watched, or listened to within the past week. There's a link for that down in the description if you're interested. Thanks for stopping by, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Ideally, I'll be building a home gym sometime this year. At least that's what I'm hoping. I need to get a home first. But if I do, then I think there's a lot of good content that I'll be able to create as far as fitness, strength, home gym equipment, and things like that I am super excited about, looking forward to. Just has to happen. Have to find a house, have to come up with the money, have to get it all done. Let's go.